Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my 31 Horror Movies in May series. Getting close to the end, a few days left. So today I'm going to go ahead and review a movie, a sequel to a movie that I included in my Halloween October 31 series last year. Um, and we're going to take a look at the sequel today, and that is the Conjuring universe. And so we're going to review The Conjuring 2 today. I reviewed The Conjuring in that series in October, and I actually just received the third Conjuring movie also in the mail today. So I'll have to give that a watch coming up, maybe in my next October 31, the end of this year. But Conjuring 2 today. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the setup, the premise, and the cast, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which will be spoiler free. So The Conjuring 2, which in United Kingdom is also known as The Conjuring 2, The Enfield Case, is a 2016 American supernatural horror film directed by James Wan. The screenplay by Chad Hayes, Carrie W. Hayes, Wan, and David Leslie Johnson. It is a sequel to the 2013's The Conjuring, the second installment in the Conjuring series, and the third installment in the Conjuring Universe franchise. The film follows the Warrens as they travel to England to assist the Hodgkin, Hodgkin, uh, Hodgkin's family. No, it's not Hodgkins. Why do they always do this to me? The Hodgkins family, who are experiencing poltergeist activity at their Enfield Council house in 1977, which later became referred to as the Enfield Poltergeist. So yeah, so that's the gist of it, or that's the setup. The movie starts in 1976. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren investigate the Amityville murders at the Amityville house to determine if a demonic presence was truly responsible for Ronald Defoe's Jr.'s killing his entire family on November 13th, 1974, and the subsequent haunting incident involving the Lutz family. During a seance, Lorraine is drawn into a vision where she relives the murders and encounters a demonic nun figure. She then witnesses Ed being impaled, badly frightening her. In 1977, the Hodgkins family begins to experience strange occurrences in their home in the London borough of Enfield after Janet, the second oldest of four children, plays with a Ouija board. Janet starts to sleepwalk and converses in her dreams with an entity in the form of an angry elderly man who sits in the family's armchair, insisting the house is his. Eventually, the Hodgkin siblings and their mother, Peggy, witness paranormal events, terrifying them into seeking refuge with their neighbors. When the media attempts to interview the family, Janet is possessed by the elderly man, Bill Wilkins, who previously lived and died in the house. As Janet shows more signs of demonic possession, the story eventually reaches the Warrens, and their assistance is required to prove whether or not Janet's possession is a hoax. Lorraine, fearful that her vision of Ed's death may become reality, warns him not to get involved. She has another vision of a demonic nun in Ed's study. The demon says its name, which Lorraine scratches into the Bible in a trance. So yeah, that's the setup and the premise for the Conjuring 2. Cast wise, we have Vera Farmiga returning as Lorraine Warren. We have Patrick Wilson returning as Ed Warren. We have Madison Wolfe as Janet Hodgson. Frances O'Connor as Peggy Hodgson. Lauren Esposito as Margaret Hodgson. Benjamin Hay as Billy Hodgson. Patrick McCauley as Jonathan Hodgson. Simon McBurney as Maurice Gross. Maria Doyle Kennedy as Peggy Noddington. Simon Delaney as Vic Nottingham, Franca, Franca Portenti as Anita Gregory, and Bob Adrian as Bill Wilkins. Whew, I got through all the names. It can only go uphill from here. So, yeah, so that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for The Conjuring 2 from 2016. I love this movie. If you know me, you know that one of my favorite subgenres of horror is sort of the haunted house. And I know it's tropey and a lot of people are tired of them, but these Conjuring movies are just done so well that I really enjoy them. To me, this is right on par with the first Conjuring movie. Different story, and they kind of open things up a bit more. I feel like with this movie, but it's on an equal playing field. I'm not going to say it's better than the original Conjuring movie, but it's not. It doesn't step down at all for me. It's on the very same parallel level. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the pros of my review. So the overall setting, I like that they changed the setting to London. Um, it's got really nice views of the houses in London overall. Just the feel of London in 1977, the overall aesthetic with that. And I also really enjoy the atmosphere of this movie, which really works from beginning to end. Um, it's a tension filled atmosphere, which is palpable throughout the movie. I mean, you really feel like you're there with this movie because of the atmosphere. So yeah, those things really stand out first. And then of course we got to get into the characters, which this is definitely one of the better character driven haunted house kind of movies. It just all the characters are well written and well developed. We get a little bit of time with each of them at the beginning of the movie to sort of set things up. So we end up coming to know them, we come to care about them and what ends up happening to them. And therefore we're rooting for him to be okay in the end of this movie, and that's what you don't get in a lot of not only haunted house movies but horror movies. Period. They usually just throw a bunch of stock characters at you and say, "Here, these are your characters. Deal with it," and it just doesn't work. But when you get something like this, just like the first Conjuring movie, where you get to know the characters on a kind of on a personal level, at least from a movie aesthetic, and yeah, this movie does that to the utmost, and that gets on to the next thing, which are the performances, the actors and actresses that put life into these characters. Obviously, Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson are at the top of their games once again, just like they were in the first movie. In some ways, they might just be a tad better in this movie. Not that there were anything, not that they weren't fantastic in the first movie, but in this movie, I feel like they kind of add sort of a love story, some lighter moments with the two characters, and kind of a love story that really works into this poltergeist haunted house story. And they all make it blend and combine it very well at the same time. And yeah, both Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are just outstanding in this movie. They really ground this movie in realism because of their performances. And then you also got to mention Madison Wolfe, who plays Janet Hotskin, the one who's really, I mean, she's kind of the main character in terms of this poltergeist. It's targeting her, and she's the one that gets possessed and has all this crap going on with her. And I thought she did a brilliant job, especially for a young actress. But really, the rest of the cast is great as well. I thought her mother, Maria Doyle Kennedy, was very good as Peggy. Or I'm sorry, that was Peggy Nottingham. Lauren, uh, hmm, who plays her mother? Oh, I'm sorry. You got two characters named Peggy in this movie. That doesn't help. Frances O'Connor plays Peggy Hotskin. She's really good, as well as the Nottinghams, Maria Doyle Kennedy and Simon Delaney. Yeah, really everybody, even the other kids, I thought were solid enough for what they had to do. Obviously, they're not on screen as much, but I kind of bought all of them, and I liked all of them. And so, yeah, great performances, great characters. They just do a terrific job of playing these characters and making you believe that what is happening here is real and has some real stakes to it. How can you talk about the Conjuring movies and not talk about James Wan's directing? This guy is a visionary. He just understands horror in a way that many others don't, especially in modern day. He understands how to build tension and to scare you in a way that isn't cheap, but effective. And he does that to the utmost in this movie, just like he did in the first movie. Yeah, I just can't praise him enough as a director. He just gets it. He gets what I'm looking for, and millions of other people as well. The cinematography and the camera work in this movie are exceptional. So many effective and scary images throughout the movie with how they use light and shadow within darkness. I mean, it's just outstanding. One of the better haunted house movies in terms of the cinematography and what they show you. The production design of this house that they're in is outstanding, not just in terms of the 70s aesthetic that it takes place in London, but also sort of the spookiness of it and sort of the hallways and the rooms and everything. It just really fits to be like a haunted setting. The sound design as well really stands out, making the movie very haunting. I also like the story here. I mean, it's based on a true story, but I like the fact that the demon in this movie, if you will, the villain, um, there's a pretty decent twist towards the end of this movie, and it really worked for me. Where the demon's really smart and deceiving in this movie, and really kind of not only throws the main characters off, but also throws the audience off when you're watching it. When you're watching the movie, the first movie was more straightforward. They went to this house. There was obviously a demonic presence there and a haunting, but in this movie they kind of subvert that a little bit, and I think it works really well again because of Juan's directing. Um, so yeah, I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the story. As I mentioned earlier, the love story between Lorraine and Ed works really well here. I mean, if it didn't work, you could say, well, why is that being thrown in here? That doesn't make any sense. But because of the performances by Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, because of the writing and because of Juan's directing, it really intertwines within the horror of this movie really well, and it actually helps ground the movie in realism even more and gives it some real high end stakes by the end of this movie with the climax. And so yeah, all of those things just work brilliantly. I just really enjoy The Conjuring too. A couple of cons that I do have. It's not a perfect movie. There are some of the cliche jump scares that we've come to expect, and I know that's why a lot of people. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but that's why some people don't like haunted house movies because you get the jump scares and they're kind of expected. They're cliche, but I don't know. They weren't cheap, at least in this movie. They weren't false jump scares. They were jump scares that were actually there to scare you, and I appreciate that. I did feel like there were some scenes that went on a little too long, especially earlier in the movie. They went on longer than they needed to, in my opinion, and as a result, this movie is 134 minutes long. It's 20 minutes longer than the original Conjuring, and I'm not going to say that I was bored at any point throughout the movie because they do a really good job with that atmosphere and tension. But it is over 2 hours long, 2 hours and 14-minute movie, and I feel like they could have shortened it by 10 or 15 minutes and been just as effective by shortening up some of those earlier scenes in the movie. And again, not to take away from, I understand the setup is important, the character setup as well as the story setup. But I just felt like there were some scenes, even when Ed and Lorraine were back in the States yet, sort of dealing with the Amityville stuff yet, and they're on a talk show and stuff. Some of that stuff, I just felt like they could have sped things up a bit and shortened some of those scenes to get us into our main story here. So, and then the final con, which isn't really a con, but it's something I noticed it. This movie's definitely less subtle than the first movie was with the haunting scares and stuff and the demonic presence and that. This movie's much more out there with it, I guess I would say. They might have had a little bit bigger budget too. I'm not really sure. I forgot to look at the comparing the two budgets, but I think they did with this movie a little bit more. But so yeah, things are definitely less subtle in this movie, which might rub some people the wrong way that like more subtlety. But again, this movie still works to the utmost for me anyway. And that's all I have for cons. Some of those are nitpicky, but overall, guys, this is everything I want in a haunted house. I know it's as much a possession movie as a haunting movie, but from the directing to the cast and the performances to the characters to the story to the cinematography, the production design, the sound design, everything just works for me in this movie. So I have no choice but to give this movie a 9 out of 10. Um, as far as the rating goes, 9 out of 10. I just love it. I think it's right on par with the original Conjuring movie. Go ahead and comment down below what you guys think of the Conjuring 2. Do you place it on the same? Do you place it with the original Conjuring movie? Do you even like it more than the original Conjuring movie? I'd be curious to hear why or why not, and pros and cons. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming videos for this series. Only a few days left. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button down below as well so you don't miss any of my great horror content that I have coming up throughout the rest of this year and beyond. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review of The Conjuring 2 as part of my 31 Horror Movies in May series. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Stay scared. Bye.